The story begins on a rainy afternoon. The Joy, looking for a way to pass the time, wanders into a dimly lit antique store on a quiet, cobblestone street. The store smells of dust and age, its shelves crammed with relics from bygone eras. Old clocks, tarnished silverware, porcelain dolls with glassy eyes, and other forgotten treasures. The air inside is thick, almost suffocating, as if the store itself holds secrets from ages past. The Joy's eyes are drawn to a small, beautifully carved wooden music box nestled among other forgotten trinkets. Its surface is etched with intricate patterns that resemble twisting vines and thorny roses. In the center of the lid is a single eye carved in ivory, staring up with an unnerving intensity. The storekeeper, an elderly man with a distant look in his eyes, notices the Joy's interest and approaches silently. He warns them about the box, saying it belonged to a family that met a tragic end. Its previous owners always claimed that it brought misfortune, he explains, but the Joy brushes off his words as superstitious nonsense. Despite the warnings, something about the music box compels them. The Joy feels an unexplainable pull toward it, almost as if the box itself is calling out to be taken. After some hesitation, they decide to purchase it. The storekeeper reluctantly agrees, his eyes shadowed with a mix of pity and fear as he wraps the box in old newspaper. He mutters under his breath as they leave, his words barely audible. Be careful with the melody. Once it starts, it doesn't stop until it's had its fill. The Joy carries the music box home, feeling an inexplicable sense of excitement. They imagine it as a beautiful addition to their collection of antiques, a rare find that will undoubtedly draw the attention of guests. Little do they know, this simple act of bringing the box home will mark the beginning of a descent into madness and horror. Back home, the Joy sets the music box on a shelf in the living room. The rain outside taps against the windows, filling the room with a rhythmic, soothing sound. The box sits there silently, its carved eye staring into the room with an unnerving intensity. For a moment, the Joy hesitates to open it, recalling the storekeeper's strange warning. But curiosity gets the better of them. With a slow, deliberate motion, they lift the lid. Immediately, the room fills with the haunting melody of the music box. It's a slow, melancholic tune, both beautiful and unsettling. The sound seems to echo through the house, lingering in the corners and shadows. As the song plays, the air grows cold, and a sense of unease creeps over the Joy. They look around, half expecting to see something lurking in the darkened corners of the room, but there is nothing. They close the lid, and the melody stops abruptly, leaving behind a silence that feels heavier than before. Shaking off the unease, they tell themselves that it's just a music box, a relic from another time, nothing more. Yet, as the evening progresses, strange occurrences begin to unfold. The lights flicker, and shadows seem to move out of sync with the room's dim lighting. Faint whispers drift through the hallways, barely audible yet unsettling, like a conversation happening just out of earshot. Trying to dismiss the events as products of an overactive imagination, the Joy goes about their evening. But the unease lingers, and when they finally retire for the night, sleep doesn't come easily. Throughout the night, they hear faint strains of the music box's melody, though they know it's securely closed on the living room shelf. The sound is distant yet clear, echoing through their dreams like a dark lullaby that refuses to let go. The next day dawns gray and gloomy, the rain continuing to patter against the windows. The Joy wakes up feeling unnerved, the memory of the haunting melody still echoing in their mind. As they go about their day, they notice subtle changes in the house. The temperature has dropped significantly, and an unnatural chill permeates the air. They try to rationalize it, blaming the storm outside for the cold, but deep down, a seed of fear begins to sprout. As the day progresses, the shadows in the house seem to stretch and twist unnaturally. In the hallway, the Joy swears they see a shadow move out of the corner of their eye, sliding along the wall like a living thing. When they turn to look, it's gone, leaving only the stillness of the empty corridor. In the kitchen, the lights flicker when they approach, casting brief, flickering glimpses of something dark lingering in the corners. Unable to shake off the growing sense of dread, they decide to inspect the music box. It sits on the shelf, as quiet and innocent as ever. The carved eye on the lid seems to follow them as they approach, its ivory surface gleaming with an unnatural light. Hesitantly, they open the lid again. The melody begins to play, filling the room with its haunting tune. This time, the song feels different, more intense, as if it's wrapping itself around the Joy's senses, squeezing tighter with each note. The shadows in the room darken, growing denser and creeping toward the center where the Joy stands. Panic surges within them, and they slam the lid shut. The music stops instantly, but the atmosphere in the room remains oppressive, the shadows lingering a moment longer before retreating to the corners. The Joy steps back, heart racing, as a cold sweat breaks out across their skin. Something is very wrong with this relic. The storekeeper's warning echoes in their mind, filling them with a chilling realization. This music box is cursed. That night, the Joy struggles to sleep. The house feels alive, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. They lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, the darkness pressing in on all sides. Then, faintly at first, they hear it, the sound of the music box's melody drifting through the hallway. Their heart skips a beat. The box is closed. How can it be playing? The whispers return, growing louder as the music fills the air. They sound like a conversation happening in another room, words intermingling in a chaotic murmur that sends chills down their spine. The voice of a child rises above the others, clear and sorrowful, repeating a phrase over and over. "Please, make it stop." The Joy sits up, eyes wide in terror. The room around them seems to warp, the walls closing in as shadows stretch across the floor. A cold breeze sweeps through the room, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. They jump out of bed, racing toward the living room where the music box sits. Throwing open the door, they freeze in horror. The lid of the music box is open, though they swear they had closed it earlier. The melody plays on its own, the gears inside the box turning slowly, almost deliberately. The room is filled with shadows, swirling around like a dark mist. The eye on the music box gleams, reflecting the dim light, as if mocking their fear. The Joy steps forward, their eyes locked on the open music box. They approach slowly, heart pounding against their ribs, feeling as though the air around them thickens with each step. The melody seems to change, growing darker and more haunting, like a dirge that echoes through the room. The carved eye on the lid gleams ominously, its gaze cold and unblinking. With a trembling hand, they slam the lid shut. The melody stops abruptly, leaving behind a silence that presses against their ears. The shadows, which had been writhing in the room like dark tendrils, retreat to the corners, where they hover and pulse as if waiting for the next note. The Joy stumbles back, eyes darting around the room, trying to understand what is happening. A cold sweat breaks out across their forehead as they struggle to catch their breath. Unable to stay in the living room, they retreat to the kitchen, switching on every light along the way. The house feels different now, its once familiar walls warped and filled with a sense of foreboding. In the kitchen, they grip the countertop, trying to steady themselves. The whispers return, faint and distorted, filtering in through the closed door like a distant chant. "Make it stop. Make it stop." The child's voice echoes, each repetition growing louder until it fills the room with a sense of inescapable dread. The Joy covers their ears, squeezing their eyes shut, but the voices continue. They open their eyes and glance toward the doorway. A dark figure stands there, barely visible in the shadows, watching them with cold, hollow eyes. A strangled gasp escapes their lips as the figure raises a hand, pointing toward the living room where the music box sits. The Joy shudders, backing away, heart hammering in their chest. They must learn the truth about this cursed relic. The next morning, the Joy wastes no time. They have to uncover the history of the music box to understand the origins of the curse it carries. After a restless night filled with nightmares and disembodied whispers, they head to the library, hoping to find some information that could explain the strange events unfolding in their home. The librarian, an older woman with sharp eyes, points them to a section filled with old records and local legends. Hours pass as the Joy pores over dusty tomes and newspaper clippings. Finally, they find a mention of the music box. According to an old article, the box belonged to a family that lived in the town over a century ago. The family had a young daughter who, after a tragic accident, became bedridden. To comfort her, her parents gave her the music box. She was said to be enchanted by the haunting melody it played, winding it day and night. But the article hinted at something darker. Neighbors claimed to have heard strange noises coming from the house, whispers, cries, and a melody that played on its own. The daughter fell into a deep despair, insisting that she could hear voices from within the box. She would beg her parents to make it stop. Eventually, the entire family perished in a mysterious fire that consumed the house. The music box was the only item recovered from the ashes, untouched by the flames. The librarian watches the joy with concern as they read. When they mention the box, the librarian's expression darkens. That relic has changed hands many times, she warns. Each owner met a tragic fate. It's said that the box holds a restless spirit, one that feeds on fear and misery. A chill runs down the Joy's spine as the pieces fall into place. The box isn't just cursed. It's haunted by the tormented spirit of the girl who once clung to its melody. Returning home with a sense of dread, the Joys steels themselves for what they know is waiting within the walls. The house seems darker, colder, the air thick with an unspoken malice. They enter the living room cautiously, half expecting to see the lid of the music box open. To their relief, it remains closed, but the tension in the room is palpable. The shadows in the corners seem to ripple, as if alive, watching and waiting. Determined to break the curse, they sit down in front of the music box. Taking a deep breath, they open the lid once more. The melody begins to play, its haunting notes filling the room with an unsettling calm. The air grows colder, and the shadows along the walls start to move, slithering toward the center of the room. The carved eye on the box seems to gleam with a sinister light, its gaze piercing through the Joy's fear. Then, the whispers return, louder and more distinct than ever. They echo around the room, circling like a dark mist. The child's voice rises above the others, crying out in anguish, "Let me out! Please, make it stop!" The Joy's vision blurs, and they feel a force pressing against them, as if trying to push them into the box's depths. The room sways, and for a moment, they feel as though they're falling into an abyss of darkness. Clenching their teeth, they force themselves to close the lid, sealing the melody within. The whispers cut off instantly, and the shadows retreat, leaving behind an eerie silence. Gasping for breath, the Joy collapses against the wall. The house grows quiet once more, but the sense of something lurking beneath the surface remains. The box is not done with them, and they know it. The Joy can't continue living in this nightmare. The music box is a trap, feeding off their fear and drawing them into its curse. Desperate, they try to get rid of it. They place it in a box and drive to a remote location, planning to bury it deep in the woods. As they dig the hole, they feel a creeping sensation, as though they're being watched. The wind picks up, carrying with it faint strains of the box's melody, echoing through the trees. Ignoring the unease, they toss the music box into the hole and cover it with dirt. Relief washes over them as they return to the car. But as they drive away, the whispers begin to seep into the car's interior, curling around them like a dark mist. "You can't leave. You belong to the music now," they hear the child's voice whisper. A cold hand grips their heart as they look in the rearview mirror. The box is sitting on the back seat, its lid closed but vibrating slightly, as if it could burst open at any moment. The Joy screams, swerving the car to the side of the road. They jump out, staring at the back seat in horror. The box remains still, its presence a mocking reminder that they cannot simply discard it. It's bound to them now, and running won't help. Back home, the Joy realizes there is only one option left. They must confront the spirit within the box. They prepare a ritual space in the living room, surrounded by candles to keep the shadows at bay. Taking a deep breath, they place the box in the center and open the lid. The haunting melody fills the air, and the temperature in the room drops sharply. The shadows surge forward, swirling around the Joy, forming into the shape of a young girl. Her eyes are hollow, her face twisted in pain as she reaches out toward the music box. "Let me out!" she cries, her voice filled with anguish and despair. The room trembles, the walls groaning as the oppressive energy of the curse presses down. Summoning their courage, the Joy steps forward. "I hear you," they say, their voice trembling. "But this must end." The girl's form flickers, her gaze turning toward the box as the melody grows louder, more chaotic. The Joy reaches out, placing their hands on the box, focusing their willpower on breaking the cycle. The room explodes in a blinding light, and the melody warps into a high-pitched scream. The girl's form shatters into fragments of shadow, swirling violently before being sucked into the box. The lid snaps shut, and the house falls into silence. The oppressive cold lifts, replaced by a warm, calming breeze that washes over the Joy. The Joy collapses onto the floor, gasping for breath. The music box sits quietly in the center of the room, its carved eye now dull and lifeless. The air feels lighter, the shadows no longer move with a will of their own, and the whispers have ceased. For the first time in days, the house feels like a home again, not a prison. They stand up, exhausted but victorious. Carefully, they take the box and place it in a locked chest, vowing never to open it again. As they lock the chest, they hear a faint whisper. "Thank you." It's the girl's voice, but now it carries a tone of peace. The curse has been lifted, and the spirit within the box has been set free. The Joy breathes a sigh of relief, feeling the warmth return to their surroundings. They know the music box will always be a dark reminder of the horrors they faced, but it no longer holds power over them. The melody that once haunted their every step is now nothing but a memory, sealed away where it can no longer harm. If this tale of the haunted music box left you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit subscribe for more eerie stories like this one. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to keep up with our latest tales of terror.